One of the most unique aspects of Chinese martial arts, like Shaolin Kung Fu and Tai Chi, is their use of standing meditation. Standing meditation is used for mental training and also for training the internal energy. This is what's known as standing meditation, and it involves a certain kind of posture so that the internal energy, which we call the qi, can move freely and harmoniously throughout the body and give the body lots of life and strength and power for their martial techniques. Very often, the first place to start learning about standing meditation is to get in touch with this posture. So this is a great place for us to start too. If you want to join me, if you haven't already stood up out of your chair, why don't you come with me now and we'll just stand facing each other like this. Feet about shoulder width apart already. Knees slightly soft. Hips slightly soft. Head floating up, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then take a nice deep breath and let it all go. Relax the shoulders. Relax the neck. Relax the waist here. Let it all just be heavy. Then the hands float up in front and round out in front of you like you're wrapping your arms around a big tree. In fact, this position is called standing like a tree. Now, let me just kind of go through some very simple characteristics of this standing like a tree position. The toes are pointing straight forward, although if they're slightly turned out because that's a comfortable posture for you, that's nothing wrong with that. The knees are soft so that the whole body can sit slightly as though you're about to sit down on a tall stool. But like sitting down in a tall stool, you don't want to tense up in the hips or the buttocks like this. You wouldn't do that if you were actually sitting down. Everything would in fact be relaxed, just like you're about to sit. The upper body here is also relaxed. And then if you are making this big round circle in front of you here, it reaches out slightly, and in doing so, draws your chest into a little bit of a hollow right there. The head floats up. And here I always tell my students, there's so many ways of describing this, so many ways of practicing this. The best way I found is to think of yourself looking down your nose at some point in the distance. So the head is kept tall, the neck straight, and then look down your nose, and that'll straighten out the back of your head and your neck in this way. Now, very important, the tip of the tongue comes to the roof of the mouth, lightly touching the upper palate just behind the teeth, and then will stay there during the course of your standing meditation, which can last anywhere from a minute to literally 2 hours. My teacher always encourages me to do an hour of standing like this every day. I'm still working on it. Underneath all of the different martial arts, and in particular the Chinese martial arts, is a theory of an inner energy. That real martial technique goes beyond the strength of your body, the size and power of your muscles, or the speed of your technique, and relies instead on an inner energy which we call the qi. Here's a simple bowl of rice, because in Chinese language, the character for qi is a picture of a pot of rice. Inside the character, you can see the grains of rice, and you can also see steam rising out of the top of the pot, which tells us that not only is qi nourishing like food, it's also hot and steamy, vaporous. You can kind of think of your whole body as like a steam engine, and all of your martial techniques running on the engine of that steam. Now, the word for the practice of nurturing this qi energy is called Qigong. Gong meaning work is the Chinese word for work or practice. So Qigong is a kind of exercise that many people do for a variety of reasons, not only martial arts. In fact, there are 3 different aspects of Qigong practice. We have what we call the medical Qigong, which is for the purpose of health and vitality and longevity. We have spiritual Qigong, which is for the purpose of raising your consciousness, of improving or increasing the vibration of your energy until it matches the energy of heaven. And finally, martial Qigong, where you are harnessing the energy of your body and your life in order to give more power to your punches and kicks and more protection to the body itself. Many martial artists have devoted entire lives to just the practice of the Qigong portion of their martial arts, thinking that it would be even more beneficial than practicing their kicks and punches. In fact, there is one style of martial arts called Yichuan, meaning mental martial arts or mental boxing, which is all about the meditation of circulating and developing the qi, harnessing this energy. And that's all the practice they do. They don't even practice kicks and punches or fighting stances or anything, but their interactive sparring is very devastating. In the practice of Qigong, as a part of this program, we want to take a look at how we can get more energy into the different martial arts that we practice. So we're going to take a look at some different styles of Qigong. We're going to learn some meditations of Qigong. And in particular, we're going to try to get the feeling of the energy moving around our body. One of the most popular forms of Qigong, and they're called meditations. Qigong exercises are called meditations. One of the most popular forms is known as the 8 pieces of brocade. A brocade meaning a precious section of fabric like silk or embroidered material, and very valuable. And so these are 8 exercises done in succession, and each one is so valuable to your health, your longevity, and to your martial ability. In fact, the 8 pieces of brocade are said to have been invented by a Chinese general, General Yue Fei, who lived around the 12th to 13th century AD. And his army was an undefeatable army, in part because he invented this daily routine of exercise that not only kept their bodies healthy and ready for battle, but also their inner energy, their qi, moving around so that they were actually even more devastating than the other army. In this exercise, which we're going to do together, the important thing is to think about circulating the qi around the body. This is actually how Qigong works, how it has its effect. All parts of your body, from your toes through your legs and body, the top of your head and the ends of your fingers, are supposed to be filled with continually circulating qi. But qi gets sluggish. Qi gets stagnant. We sit too much. We have the same kind of unhealthy habits. And so we have to stimulate it in some way to move and circulate. And that's what Qigong exercises are for. This particular form of Qigong exercise, this meditation, is fairly simple because it stays in one spot more or less. There are some side-to-side movements, a lot of up and down movements, some movements that go forward or backwards. And I'm going to lead you through this. So if you haven't already done so, why don't you stand up and face me, and we'll do this together. If I go in one direction and you go in another direction, again, it's not that important. The important thing is to get a sense of the continuous motion of the qi energy. So let's start here. Hands by your sides, feet about shoulder width apart, toes pointing forward. A little smile never hurt anybody. Breathe in and breathe out. We begin, as we do with many different exercises, by sinking the qi. Your arms float up and around to the outside. Palms scoop into the center, right into the center of the body, and press all the way down. One more time. Breathe in. Gather in. Breathe out. Now, stay with me. At the bottom here, both hands turn palm up, the fingers pointing towards each other, and then the hands float up the center line of the body. Around chest high, they rotate to turn the palms to the sky and reach out overhead. Now, in this position here, with my hands reaching straight up overhead, I'm looking up at my hands, or actually between the space between my fingers and thumbs. Then I look forward, and then I release and come all the way down. Right? Once again, I repeat, the hands turn palm up, and they draw up the front of the body. Now, this is a long inhalation. I'm still inhaling. Fingers turn up to the, still inhaling, all the way up, look up between the fingers, hold the breath and the posture, then look forward and exhale, breathing out all the way down, all the way down. Now, if you want, you can actually bend your knees a little bit, soften here, interlace the fingers, there's another variation. Breathe in, all the way up, palms rotating to the heavens. And this is called holding up the heavens like a pillar look forward, release, all the way down one more time. Breathe in. Hold, look forward, breathe out. We won't sink down this time because we're going to reverse the arms and sink the chi and go on to the next movement. Beautiful. Now, stay with me as we take a little bit wider step out to the side. About double shoulder width here. And the hands float up in front, round out, scoop down, and bend the knees, sitting down, crossing the wrists, and then floating back up again. One hand makes an arrow with the index finger extended, the rest of the fingers curled in. The other hand pulls the bow back across the chest and sit down. Now this is very important. The eyes are active here, and I'm turning my chin to look down the length of my arm, down the arrow, out to the side here. Then release the bow. Lean over. Coming back up, cross the hands again. The other hand makes the arrow, and this hand draws the bow as I look down. The breath is definitely involved here. Breathe in to gather in. All together, extending, pulling, and sinking. Breathe out. And this is called drawing the bow to shoot the vulture. The vulture representing disease, old age, and death. So we shoot the vulture with the energy of our life. Last time, reaching on out, floating back up, bringing the feet back together, hands float down, and we go back to the beginning, sinking the chi to end that particular brocade and start the next one. Once again, the hands turn palm up, and they both float up towards the center. One hand turns palm down, the other hand turns palm up towards the sky, and separate out in opposite directions. One hand reaching way up towards the heaven, one hand pressing down towards the earth, and this is in fact called penetrating heaven and earth. Then both hands float back to the center again, back to the middle. The opposite hand now turns up towards heaven and reach in two directions, right? Stretching out, the fingers of both hands pointing in towards the midline. Breathe in to the center. Breathe out to the extremes. One more time, breathe in. Breathe out. Then breathe into the center. Both hands press down. And back to the beginning, sinking the chi to mark the end of that third piece of brocade. The fourth piece of brocade is called the wise owl looks behind. Open up your chest by turning your hands palm out, then turn the head as far as you can turn. When you've turned the head as far as you can turn, you turn your shoulders as far as they can turn, and then finally turn the hips, and by this time you can look all the way behind you. Return in the opposite direction so your hips come back first, then your shoulders, then your head, and relax your chest. Open and breathe in, turning the head, the shoulders, the hips. Breathe out, returning the hips, then the shoulders, then the head. One more time. Open up, turn head, shoulders, and hips, and come back, breathing out to the center. And one more time, sinking the chi to mark the end. And that's halfway through the 8 pieces of brocade. That's 4 pieces of brocade. Gives you a good sense of this particular kind of standing meditation called the 8 pieces of brocade, something that martial artists often practice in order to get their chi strong on the inside. So, how does Qigong prepare the martial artist for fights? Well, the theory is that underneath all of the martial techniques is this inner energy, because it's really the Qi that does everything. The Qi makes things move. The Qi fills your punches and kicks with power. But then what happens if you don't have Qi in the correct position? If you don't have Qi in the fists and the feet, or in the body if you're trying to protect yourself? And the reason for this is that, as we've said before, because of lifestyle, because of different bad habits, because of the way that we eat, the way that we stand, the way that we sit, the qi gets blocked. It gets bottlenecked. It gets stuck in the body. And so Qigong is a practice of opening up the channels for the qi to circulate around the human body so that it gets to all the parts of the body and will be there when you need it as a martial artist. This circulation actually follows a very specific pathway. Now, there's lots of pathways throughout the body. These are called the acupuncture meridians, or Jingluo in Chinese. And they go everywhere. They go all throughout, the legs and the body, the torso, the head even, the arms and fingers especially. But there is one particular pathway that the qi is flowing around that's up and down the spine. This is the primary conduit of the qi energy. And the full circulation of the qi throughout this spine, up and down the front and up the back, is called the microcosmic orbit. Now, the microcosmic orbit is a fundamental Qigong meditation, and it's so basic that all three aspects of Qigong, martial Qigong, medical Qigong, and spiritual Qigong, all share this particular kind of meditation, this particular kind of Qigong. It's always happening. It's always being aware of, conscious in the mind of the martial artist, in the background of his movements, that I am circulating the qi throughout so that it's where I need it when I want it. The microcosmic orbit involves a very relaxed kind of meditation in which you are using your breath, your posture, and most of all, your imagination to visualize the qi flowing through this conduit up and down the spine and through very specific points, which we might call gateways. In the yoga tradition, we call them chakras, wheels where energy passes through. And so the microcosmic orbit meditation is about visualizing one by one these gateways, these points, and the qi flowing through them, guiding it very specifically and very deliberately down the front of the spine, up the back, over the top, and around again. So I want to invite you to learn this meditation with me. Even though this meditation is not used for fighting as a fighting tactic, it is how fighting becomes effective. It is how your martial techniques go beyond the strength of your body and the speed of your technique, but into something more internal and powerful. So, find someplace comfortable. We're going to do this sitting rather than standing, because there's a lot going on in this meditation, and it's kind of, be kind to yourself. Let yourself be relaxed. So go ahead and find a chair, or as I'm doing, sitting on a stack of mats on a stool. All works very well, so that your feet are flat on the floor, your feet are separated, your hands are, I usually like to put them palm up right on top of my knees here. The head floats up, just like we talked about before. My spine is straight. I'm going to let my chest hollow just a little bit by extending my arms out in front slightly. The tip of the tongue comes to the roof of the mouth and lightly touches the upper palate, and here's the reason why. This pathway, the microcosmic orbit, will start right here at the lower palate, the lower lip, travel down the front of the body all the way to the perineum. And then that front channel, which we call the functional channel, ends. And the second channel, which we call the governor channel, begins and comes from the perineum up the back and over the top of the head, down past the forehead to the upper lip, the upper palate, and then you have a gap right here in between the upper and lower palate. And so the tongue at the roof of the mouth provides the bridge between those 2 points. And so then you have a very powerful and continuous loop, a loop or an orbit, and in this case, the microcosmic orbit. Now, you might even want to close your eyes and just listen to the sound of my voice, allowing yourself to make a picture in your mind as I describe the different points through which the energy is traveling. Close your eyes, breathe in deeply, and breathing out all the way, just release and relax. Breathe in again, filling up the lower abdomen with air, expanding it like a big balloon, and then just allow the balloon to naturally contract and empty, breath coming out. One more time, breathe in deeply. And breathing out all the way, you might even just sigh a little bit. Very nice. Now imagine at the lower lip, the lower palate, a small dot of energy, a small ball, a wheel, a little spiral of energy. You can think of it as a particular color if you like, red or blue, something that will really stick out in your mind. Imagine the energy beginning at this point, growing and coalescing, becoming more active and alive, right there at the lower palate. Now visualize the energy descending. Right at the base of your throat, what we might call the throat chakra or the throat acupuncture point, is the next gateway through which the energy must pass. So begin to visualize that point of energy circling around, gathering at the throat point. Your throat should begin to feel more relaxed, more open, the breath easier to come in and out. You might even be able to swallow more easily. Any congestion in your throat will begin to clear up. Your throat will warm, perhaps, as the energy begins to coalesce. If you can imagine it, then you can feel it. And then there's a connection between the lower palate and the throat as the energy flows from one to the next. Next is the heart chakra, the heart acupuncture point, the heart gateway, right in the center of your chest. So think of it as a line right down the length of your spine, never straying from side to side, but going completely vertical. So in the center of your chest, you can visualize this point of light or this feeling of energy, this ball of qi beginning to coalesce and grow and get more active. The heart warms, the chest expands, the breath comes more easily. You feel mellow, you feel happy, you feel love in the heart. And then there's a connection from the lower palate through the throat down to the heart chakra. And you can visualize this energy connected all the way down to the center of your chest. Next is the solar plexus, right down at the base of your rib cage, right in the middle of your body, right where you don't want to get a gut punch, solar plexus. And here again is a gathering place for energy, so you begin to feel something starting to awaken, something starting to coalesce, something starting to grow, whether it's a ball of energy, a point of light, a feeling, something that's getting bigger and more active, warmer, growing, and then connecting from the lower palate through the throat, down to the heart, down into the solar plexus, a continuous line of energy. Down past the solar plexus is another point of energy called the lower dantian. The dantian, which means basically a gathering point, and this one is about an inch underneath your belly button, beneath your navel. So if you can imagine this, think about a point just below your belly button that's beginning to gather energy. You begin to feel that small circle, whether it's red or blue or white or orange, whatever color you feel is vibrant in your mind, growing, circling, turning around like a wheel. As this grows, you begin to feel the connection of the energy from your lower lip, through your throat, down through your solar plexus, through your heart first, then the solar plexus, down into the lower dantian. From there, the energy proceeds down into the sexual organs, whether man or woman. There's another energy center there. You can begin to feel the energy connecting. from the throat, down through the heart, down through the solar plexus, the lower dantian, the genitals, and then into the perineum at the base of the spine, straight down from the body, in line with the top of the head. This is the perineum, and this is actually the end point of the front channel, the functional channel, the first half of the microcosmic orbit. Let's take a breath and see if you can visualize the connection of all that energy all the way down the front. Now we would begin on the other half of the microcosmic orbit. There's an equal number of points up the back of the spine as there is going down the front. But for right now, for the purposes of this exercise, let's imagine that the energy has flowed up the top of the back and over the top of the head to the point right on the crown, right at the very top of the head, which is called the Bai Hui point. In Chinese, this means the point of 100 possibilities, right at the very top. The energy then travels from the Bai Hui point down over the top through the forehead, the third eye, the Tian Mu. And from the Tian Mu to the upper palate, right above the lips and teeth, connecting through the tongue, the entire microcosmic orbit. And this is how we circulate qi for martial strength. So let's see, we have standing meditation, we've got seated meditation, we've got meditation for warriors, we've also got meditation for animals. Did you know that? A very popular form of Qigong is called the Five Animals Frolic, or the Dance of the Five Animals. It was actually developed by a famous doctor named Hua Tou to teach people how to keep themselves healthy, to circulate the qi like the animals do. And I thought it might be fun if I showed you at least a comparison between some of the movements that we learned in the 8 pieces of brocade with at least one movement from the 5 animals. So in 8 pieces of brocade, the very first movement is called holding up the heavens like a pillar. And if you remember, and by the way, you should be doing this with me. If you haven't already done so, why don't you stand up out of your chair one last time. We'll get the hands turning palm up, lifting up the front of the body, rotating up towards heaven, reaching out, looking up as we do so. And this space between the index finger and the thumb, it has a very special name, which I'm going to tell you in just a moment. We look forward and release. And that is the first piece of the 8 pieces of brocade. Now in the 5 animal system, we have another movement almost exactly like this, only you have to put yourself in the body of a tiger. This is called the young tiger cub stretches forth its paws. And so from the hands by your sides, we have both hands making soft fists, very loose fists, and then they draw up the front of the body until about chest high, when the palms open up, and again, palm up, reach up towards the sky, and you're looking through that space between the index finger and thumb, which is called the tiger's mouth. You look up through the tiger's mouth, and then you close those soft fists again, draw them down the front of the body, open up the palms, and press down into the earth. So that's just a little comparison. They're both Qigong, they're both different kinds of exercises, and people do all of them in the practice of martial arts. So let's say you do your Qigong, you get lots of energy, you get lots of qi in your body, you get lots of power. What are you going to do with all this power? In the martial arts, it's a very important concern about who you are and what kind of use that you will put to this kind of power. So part of Qigong is not only about circulating and enlivening the qi, but about cultivating the quality of the qi, making you a better person so that the use that you put to this is always beneficial to humankind and not to dominate anybody else. And that's a fundamental theory of martial arts.